Well, hello and welcome to the stream. Let's go ahead and see what we can get to. We're going to do a little bit of demonic possession.
In the high desert and the great American Southwest, I think you're the good morning to afternoon, wherever you may be in the world's many time zones, each and every one covered by this program. In the desert, I'm Art Bell. Great to be here tonight. It's going to be a good program. It's going to be a scary program. I seem to rotate through virtually every emotion you can imagine during the show. All right, the rules for the show are very simple. We only have two rules. No bad language, and only one call per show. That's it. Those are the rules. Thank you to Jealous, Keith Rowan, our webmaster, Heather Wade, producer. Oh, Joe Talbot up there. Net sales, TuneIn Radio, and Leo Ashcraft for CNN and Center, and so much more. He does a lot of work, folks. A lot of work. Okay, housekeeping stuff first, I guess. Tonight is our first time on X. What is XPS? XPS is something that is a satellite service for broadcast stations. So it allows them to easily pick us up and now, in addition to the 20 or 25 stations that we've already listed, tonight I would like to begin meeting you some new ones that are just joining tonight. KAWL 1370 AM in New York, Nebraska. KCOG 1400 AM in Centerville, California, or Centerville, Iowa. Well, I'm not doing very well here, am I? Welcome. How's the boss? KBPD 96.7 FM in Forks, Washington. 25,000 watts. And here's one I'm in love with. KGUM 567 kilohertz. Is that a giveaway about what it might be? Got it wrong. 10 kilowatts wrong. Probably can do it quite well in the Philippines, actually. I'll test that when I'm over. KMAS 1030 AM in Shelton, Washington. Welcome. They also have several translators. 92.9, 105.7 in Philadelphia, and 103.5 in Shelton. KTNH 1070 AM in Houston, Texas. 5 kilowatts. Houston. 18 AM 930 and that's 930 AM in Kitchener, Alaska. 1 kilowatt. Welcome. Also translator. 97.5 in Craig, Alaska. KVSF 101.5 FM, Mexico, in Rhythm. WDLR 1550 in Delaware, Ohio. Welcome. WJML 1340 AM Oxford, New York. 1 kilowatt. WQTT 1270 AM in Marysville, Ohio. 500 watts. Welcome. KTOX 1340 AM Needles, California. Welcome. Needles, it's down the road time. WLVL in Lockport, New York. 1 kilowatt. Welcome. So that's what I'll read tonight. We're going to read these as we go along. The things are coming in like this now. And if you want, there will be many more. If you want us on in your market, then call up your local station manager and drive them crazy. All right. My UFO dream, this is nothing short of hilarious. I mentioned a dream one night I had on the air about UFO, right? That was a couple weeks ago. Somebody went out and produced my dream in video, 3D animation video. It's at Marcel.com. If you want something that's probably, you gotta see it. It's one of the funniest things you've ever seen. A dream put into 3D animation. I'm going to play the audio from it here, but trust me, it doesn't do justice. You need to go to Marcel.com and you need to see this. I about fell off the chair when he sent it to me earlier. Here's the audio from it. Go see the video. It's the weirdest dream last night. I had a dream about a UFO. I was in a bus. I had a camera, and I was going out of my mind because there was this flame scene UFO ahead in my dream. And so I went to the front of the bus, trying to get, a decent picture of the thing, which was just ahead of the summer. And I couldn't get a picture of it. And then finally I did, around the corner, so I got a picture of the UFO, or a couple of pictures, and you can all of this. Somehow or another I got the UFO, and some little green guy, alien smell, reached down, he grabbed my camera, and I beat on his sister. Pulled the hell out of it, and out comes this arm with my camera, and I was happy. I remember my being happy, and then of course I looked at my camera, and there's a picture of the UFO that I took with me. Ooh, was I angry. So maybe that's not like real life, huh? Pictures are always drawn. This one was really gone. You have to see the animation that goes with this. It is hilarious. What a job this guy did. Somebody, let's see, who is it? Amanda writes to me that she listened to one of my old interviews on YouTube, and she said, "Man, you were a lot meaner back then." Was I really mean back then? Am I not mean now? Maybe I need to get my mean on. By the way, if somebody wants to call early here, I'll take one early call. You've heard bad news, and it couldn't be worse. It's again, in America, again and again and again. Even the president said it like that again. The gunman opened fire at an Oregon community college on Thursday, killed at least a dozen people. Now that's down to 9 dead, maybe 20 wounded. The numbers are fluctuating all around. We don't know. We don't know anything about the people killed. We don't know anything about the gunman. He was in his 20s, they say, and that's all they say, really, so we don't know. I did hear one thing, that he had posted something on a social media site saying, it's the only way he's ever going to get in the news. Really? That was his reason? It's the only way he's ever going to get in the news, really? You think it's so great being in the news? President Obama went on to again talk to the nation. He said, we're becoming numb to mass shootings, and we are. And naturally, he talked about gun control. We don't have a gun problem in America. There are a lot of guns. We have a mental health problem in America. Ronald Reagan, much to my disgust, because I loved the man, but he opened up the doors of the mental health facilities and pretty much ejected everybody a long time ago, and it's never been the same since. And now we're in a worse situation now, mental health wise. And obviously, people who lobby for guns, they're right. Guns don't kill people. People do that. And they do it because they're mentally ill. I mean, how is it not mentally ill to kill a whole bunch of people in a college because it was the only way you were going to get on the news? There had to be signs. There just had to be. Oh, okay. I see somebody's calling. So let me very quickly answer the phone and try to Get it on here. Okay, so line 2, you're on here. What the hell do you want?
I'm sorry, I wanted to share a dream with you.
Well, no dreams tonight. I've got something really important to do. Get off my line.
All right.
All right, fine. I'll let it happen. Is that what you mean? That was foolish. If you're out there listening, I'm sorry. I can't be mean. I'm really. I mean, I could be, but what would be the point? All right, coming up after the break. We've got something really special for you. Father Michael L. Marginal was born in Gary, Indiana in 1957. He's a couple years, decade or so younger than I am. He went to Rome for theology and gained an STL degree in biblical theology in 1984. Father Michael was ordained a priest on July 2nd of 1983. He then later sent back to Rome to gain a JCL degree in canon law at the Pontifical Gregorian University in 2000. When he returned, he would be assigned to St. Stephen Martyr Parish as administrator, with duties also at the tribunal in the Diocese of Gary. For 3 years, he was in charge of the tribunal as judicial vicar for the diocese, then became pastor of the parish. In 2012, he was given permission by the bishop to be an exorcist for the Amon family. I'm having trouble with mouth tonight. The Amon family, I believe that is correct, in Gary, Indiana, whose case eventually would receive worldwide notoriety. It was a really serious exorcism. So, in a moment, coming up is Father Marginal. And I really think that this is one that you're going to sort of want to take a moment and take a deep breath and get ready for it. Because it's going to be rough stuff. I mean, we're talking, I guess, about the devil here. In fact, we'll find out very early what it is we're talking about. From the high desert, I'm Mark Bell with Midnight. Terror. Call the show. Please direct your invitations to the mail. 952-225-5278. That's 1-952. Call Art. All right, here we go. This is, of course, that song in the beginning. Father, I'm Marginal. Welcome to Midnight in the Desert.
Thank you.
You're located in a cold place, right?
Near Chicago.
That's a cold place. In fact, I was in Chicago in the winter, and boy, they're not kidding about the windy city. When it gets down near zero, and the wind is going around those buildings, wow, that's about, I've lived in cold places, and that about did it. So, where to begin with you, sir? Father, is evil real?
Very much.
Okay, a lot of people doubt that, you know. In fact, a lot of people doubt a lot of things, but especially evil, both good and evil. In fact, a lot of people doubt both. I was interviewed for many months a man named Father Malachi Martin. Have you ever heard the name?
Yes.
Okay. Sort of a heretic with regard to catechism, but he had a lot of interesting things to say. For example, he used to say that walking down the streets of New York, he could tell when he passed a person if they were perfectly possessed. An interesting phrase. In other words, he explained it by saying, you know, they have a job, they have a life, and there's certain things they want in that life, money, fame, whatever it is. They've made their deal, and they're satisfied with it. Does that sound like some people particularly possess?
Yes, because they look pretty much like, as you said, a normal person, but they have been totally dedicated themselves to the working with Satan against God.
Yes, sir. Is it possible that a person in a quiet moment, perhaps a moment of, I don't know, despair or grief or something, would sit down and in their own mind, I mean, we have this classic movie definition of the devil trotting in with horns and the contract that you have to sign. But you really could make your pact with the devil quietly, silently, and all by yourself, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Can a curse cause somebody to be possessed?
It is becoming more common than people think. Because a curse would be put on someone by one who would be perfectly possessed, willing, someone who has dedicated themselves to working totally against God, working with Satan, and has invited him into their life. And it is in that relationship that Satan, the devil, tries to get them to do more and more of his work, which they are usually most willing to go along with. Occasionally, there does come a time when they can't go no farther. And that's probably when we get called in, because now they will fight against that relationship.
If I'm right, so if we consider, for example, somebody who's perfectly possessed, and I don't know, their deal with the devil was, I want to rise to the top of my business, and somebody gets in their way, that perfectly possessed person could in effect put a curse against somebody in their way, and have something bad happen to them.
Yes, to do that, they would usually have to first develop a friendship with that person. It usually starts, they actually are trying to get them on board with themselves, with Satan. So it is maybe a mentoring or some sort of relationship that is developed as like a friendship. But in the course of that, they also want to make sure that friendship is maintained. And so they want to get a personal object of that person, something very special to them. Or else they could also give something to that person that person would consider to be very special. And so that forges the bond between the person. So you have to establish that first. And then it's usually only when that person turns away from them, then they use that object to form a curse. And it's kind of to get them back, to intimidate them, to scare them. But usually it has the opposite effect. It drives them further away. But that's, and it takes a ritual, to do that. So that's why you have to be perfectly possessed.
Well,
To show that way.
And what you would have to try, particularly involving a personal object or maybe a locket hair or whatever, and then a ritual. This sounds, I've interviewed witches on the air.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not to my credit, but I do interview witches. And frankly, that is exactly what they say that they need to do their job of some kind of spiritual warfare, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
That sound about right?
Yeah, so it is the sending of some demon to them. Now it's a demon that's already they are tied with, and that demon will bother them, until they would have it be sent to someone else. So,
Okay. We also have talked on this program about the next thing, and that is generational curses. People claim that they generations of your family that have had curses laid on them. This happens, it is effective.
yeah, that would be like from mother to daughter, usually. That's the usual way, mother or mother to son. Occasionally father, to child as well. But it seems tends to be women more pass that on to their children. And it is usually those that are involved in occult type of practices, Santeria, voodoo, things like that.
Would it be your view, Father, that people who toy around with things like Ouija boards are possibly calling forth things they're not going to be so happy that come?
Yeah, so that's the second way of kind of inviting a demon into your life. Now, they can never, there's a normal way that any devil demon comes to a person, and that's through what's normally allowed by God is temptation. Any demon could tempt you, and that's pretty much putting an idea in your head. They speak to us telepathically that way, so you get this strange idea in your head, and any person is open to that experience. To go further, then it would need an invitation on our part to invite a demon more into our lives beyond that. And so Ouija boards, tarot cards, palm reading, fortune telling, those kind of occult practices, seances, they are ways to open up our lives to having a demon to have further control in it. Now, a lot of times, curiosity is the first thing that kind of gets people to go into that. And probably the best thing to happen to a person would be they get scared of that and never touch it again. But the demon working that doesn't really want that experience. They want to intrigue us and entice us and encourage us to go further and further with them. But it does have, that's kind of the risk they take, when they kind of see something happening, either the person will get scared and stop it, or get intrigued and get more involved in it. And so that's where it starts to begin. We open the door to them in our lives. But once you open that door, we lose control on when we can tell them to leave, because now they kind of have taken control. We have given them an opportunity. And so when we don't want them anymore, they're going to fight that. And that's, again, when we kind of get called, is because they want us to get more and more involved in their business, their life. And when we don't want it, we want to break it, then they're going to go from kind of a friendship type of thing to an attack and turn on us, to intimidate us, so they'll go from enticement to fear.
Right. Father, have you ever, how long have you been a priest now? How many years?
32 years.
32 years. In that time, have you ever had weak moments in your own faith, or have you felt your faith challenged? That's a hard question. You could say, I'd rather not answer that.
Yeah, I mean, there are always challenges, but I don't think anything that was really, I guess probably the biggest time would have been when I did leave the seminary. There was I had a girlfriend, and so I left the seminary my sophomore year in college, and so I had to deal with that, and but I did come, ended up seeing that I was called to be a priest, and came back. But that was a difficult time.
That must have been rough, indeed, very rough. And it was sort of an impertinent question. I probably shouldn't have asked, but as we go on tonight, it may be that people will understand the reason for it. I think you've also had opportunities to see your faith strengthened enormously, and we'll talk about that. We've got the long break that we talk about is here, and then we'll come back and really get on. Father, stand by. Father Michael Maggio is my guest. He did an exorcism that was nationwide. Made nationwide news. Let's talk about that. Then also talk with the Father about what happened in the nation today. We'll be right back. All right. This is going to be quite a program. I'm going to get an exorcism that made nationwide, maybe worldwide news, and you're going to hear about it. It's a very serious one with witnesses before, and it's really complicated and amazing what he did. The reason I asked him about his faith was, without going into the details of the exorcism yet, we'll get to that. It just seems to me that coming face to face with whatever it is you came to face with, the devil or a demon, that would be actually a faith-affirming moment. Would that be right, Father?
Oh, yes, definitely, because dealing with a demon, they have an intelligence that is far superior to ours and very manipulative, and so we do have to have it based on a faith in God, who is more powerful, or else we would come to think that without that what we are facing is the most powerful thing we ever seen, but knowing that God is more powerful, it is that protection that enables us to carry out that.
I mean, if anybody ever doubted God, certainly coming face to face with the demon or with the devil, that would do the trick, it seems to me. Anyway, before we move on, Father, today something awful happened again up in Oregon at a community college, and a guy went in with a rifle of some kind and shot apparently 9 dead, maybe 20 wounded. And our president came on and talked to the nation about it. And you could see that our president was very dejected. And it is, I completely understand, it is so mystifying to me and so many others when this sort of thing happens, and again, and again, and again, and again. And it's almost like something, I mean, there was a quote on social media, Father, that said the guy said something like, "It's the only way I'll ever get in the news." Yeah. And so the other thing Father Malachi Martin said is that possession is up hundreds of percent in New York City and nationwide, he thought as well. And I'm not sure where else we go for an explanation. I'm not the gun lobby, but Father, it's not the guns. It's people's decisions to use them that's going on here. It's mental health. Or maybe it's what we're talking about. What do you think?
Yeah, the devil does have all kinds of tools that get us into his world, which is hatred of mankind. And my particular case, an exorcism, which is a ritual, pretty much only works against evils that were ritualized in, as we were talking about curses and Ouija boards,
yes,
what you call them, things like that.
That's right.
But he also has many other tools that are more, say, normal. But exorcism wouldn't work on that. But they do take possession of the person, from beginning with different addictions like alcohol, gambling, sex addiction, also video games, and those types of things also kind of take possession of the person slowly but surely. And they start out perhaps maybe as good things. There's, whenever anything is done in moderation, it's a good or the purpose that was designed by God, because God does give us good things, or enable us to create good things to kind of let loose the endorphins that He created in us to help us to get that little oomph so that we could do difficult things that are responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's nice to have a nice balance between those things. So where there's things we like to do that help us to do the responsibilities or duties that we also need to carry out, and to have that nice balance in life is very good. But the problem with addictions and such, with endorphins and such, is there's a law of diminishing returns. And so we think to do it again is going to keep that high going, but actually it diminishes, and that's in God's design, because it's only those things are just there to give us a boost to help us deal with the more difficult normal things of life that we have to deal with, and so they don't get us down completely. And so, but when we just go and do them over and over and over, then that defeats the purpose. And so it's not bring the little spice of life in each little, and some of these things that we enjoy doing to enable us to live, and do the things that God also wants us to do, which are sometimes difficult, the daily luxuries.
All right, but Father, this thing of people just suddenly deciding to walk into schools and kill children.
Yeah.
There's something going on here that's way, way beyond my understanding.
Yeah, that's probably something, we need to see what does lead people to that, because it does have to, something brought about a meaninglessness in their life, that all of a sudden, that's a long thing that Satan had to do to drag a person down into thinking that their life is meaningless, and the only thing that's left for them to do is to kill a whole mess of people so they can get on the news. I mean, for a person to come to that level, it takes a long, long time.
One would think, or is it possible? I mean, is it possible that a demon can grab somebody's thoughts? Maybe a person who's already weak to one of the things that you described, and put the thought in their mind to just go and do this for it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So it does, they would have to lose the purpose that God had for them in their life. And so it is something that seemed to be a good that has taken hold of them. And the more it takes hold of them, and the more it keeps them away from doing what God wants them to do. And so all of a sudden their life turns to be meaningless, and they kind of get into despair, and there's nowhere else to turn, and then there's a hatred of themselves, that turns to hatred toward others. And so it is the very process a demon, a devil uses to get us into a hell, away from God so much that all of a sudden there doesn't seem to be anything else out there except what he suggests. Now, but the person has to be brought to that point before they would do something like that.
So that's a process you're describing. It's not instant, it's a process.
So it's a long, so that just didn't happen overnight. It's not like, we could be tempted, let's go to the school and take our gun and shoot.
Yes.
That doesn't happen. For a person to get to that point, the devil has been working on them a long time, slowly taking possession. Now, we always have free will, and we're always free to come to get away from that. But there does come to see this cycling darkness that, as we get involved in something over and over and over, to the point that we're no longer doing what God created us to do, and we're, and it seems this dark, hopeless thing that we finally come to the point where the devil wanted us to do this type of thing. And so I think we do need to see when a person is cycling down,
there's my point.
Come out of that.
Yeah, why doesn't somebody see this cycling? Either parents or friends or fellow students or, my gosh, somebody has got to be seeing this go on. If you say it's a process, the long process you talk about, there's no answers that make any sense to me. To what end, Father, do demons possess the living? In other words, what is the point to the demon? Why are they jealous? Do they want to have physical bodies or feel they have physical bodies? Why?
It probably goes all the way back to the very beginning, because a demon is a fallen angel. And in the very beginning, the book of Genesis doesn't really speak about the creation of angels, but we kind of have a hint of it in the first verse, that in the beginning, God created heaven and the earth. There was this formless void. There was this chaos. And it's before the visible universe was created with the light. And so there was the creation of the invisible universe of the spirits created in God's image and likeness, but they didn't really have anything to do. So it's kind of chaotic. They're free will, but they're kind of just bumping into things that have nothing to do with each other. It's kind of a chaotic mess. And so God now will create the visible universe. And so he created light, and the first person who carried out the light is Lucifer, who means light bearer. And so he was the first creature given a job to take care of the light, to bear it. And then God gave other commands, and then then all the angels, the whole invisible creation now became involved in the visible creation, and we're involved in all kinds of things.
You're saying at the beginning now, let me get this straight, at the beginning Lucifer was the keeper of light.
Yeah, so Lucifer was the highest of the angels. So he carried out the very first task of God, the very first order command. So God said, let there be light, and there was light. So God created the light, and Lucifer bore that light, carried it.
Lucifer doesn't have that light anymore, though, right?
No, now he considered himself to be, he knew he was the greatest. He was the first asked by God, and so he had that idea that he's the greatest. Then when God created, and then there was now everything went from good to very good, the creation of man in his image and likeness. He then, when God rested, he then, and creation was complete. He then gave Lucifer the second command, and he wanted him to now take care of man, to be his guardian angel, to be the guardian angel of Adam. Now, that was very insulting to him because he felt he was the greatest of creatures, and man was kind of the, even though he was created in God's image and likeness, and there was also one thing that Lucifer was a little bit jealous of too, was that man was given the command to be fruitful and multiply. He can reproduce like all the other living things of God's creation can reproduce. An angel can't, so that they can't generate or reproduce. So
contrary to what many people think, the devil, Lucifer, cannot reproduce or do anything with a human womb.
Actually, in Genesis, there was a suggestion that there was this that created a flood. Was that actually Lucifer? Before I get into that, let me just kind of complete the thought, because he felt that man, which was a lesser creature than himself, should serve him, and that what God was asking him to serve man. So he had an idea that of a master-slave relationship is the proper order for creation. Well, God, as a father, had the idea that his order is that the greater serves the lesser. So it's a father, son, parent, child, a mother taking care of a baby type of a relationship. And so it was these two mentalities that now came in conflict. Now when Lucifer refused to do that, he was now going to show God who's boss, and he was going to, not do what God wanted, but what he was going to enslave man. And so he was going to turn man away from God, away from his command, and have him do what his bidding. And so, and when he came to actually lower himself, so he went from being the highest creature to now lowering himself until kind of crawling on the earth and embracing the earth and taking over the earth, so to speak. But that was and eating its dust and all this kind of stuff. So he lowered and he ceased to be the angel of light and now became a serpent, now became crawling on the ground. But it was, again, so that mankind would also lose what God designed for it and come to join him in the same way. And so that would begin the great battle, and so it's went from a relationship of love to one of domination, and so and that would be mankind would kind of get into that. Then when Lucifer, Satan saw that he no longer had his high position. And he was jealous, became jealous and hateful of man, because now man seemed to be able to do something he couldn't do, which was reproduce. And so now he had to come up with a way to try to reproduce using man, it's a cooperation. And so it seemed like he formed what is known as the Nephilim, which is a race of giants that made mankind so evil. And it's kind of in ancient times, in medieval times, there would be demons that were known as incubus and incubi and succubi. So the incubus is one who would attack a female, and a succubi is one who attacked a male. So he seemed to kind of do kind of what I think in our modern times we see this activity more as aliens, extraterrestrials doing this, but where he would come to take the seed of man, the sperm of man, join it with an egg of a woman, and implant it in the woman so that the woman would give birth to a child, but outside of the plan of God. And so instead of God implanting a human soul in that, he could enter into that and be take that body, possession of that body. And so there came to be that race of giants, these demonized human beings that started to grow up, which corrupted the world so bad that God had to destroy it and start again from scratch with Noah and such.
All right, Father, we've got a hold right there. We're at a break, so stand by and we'll be right back. Father, my knowledge is my guess. Just wait till you hear what's ahead. It'll be quite an exorcism.
And you guarantee me there, I'll make a bet with you. You like a pretty good fiddle, so I'll give the devil his due. I'm gonna fiddle the gold against your soul, and I got bigger.
You atoms will fight in the darkness. The sin of the desert will go now. Here's our Father, Michael is our guest. And we're about to talk about an exorcism that he did. But a little background, and I think we're almost done with that. There is one thing, though, that bothers me. The Father said that Lucifer took life. And I had somebody on this program that talked about UFOs named John Lear. And I guess it'll bother me until the day I die, but John Lear said, Art, when you die, you're going to see the light, and there's going to be darkness, and you're going to have a choice to make. And he said, don't go to the light, it's a trick. That's bothered me ever since I heard it, Father.
When you die, no. Actually, you do want to go into the light, toward God.
Long as Lucifer doesn't have it anymore.
No. He loves that. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I mean, here you are, a priest, and you get a call, apparently, from, is it the Ammons family? Is that correct? Ammons, okay. Ammons family, that's a long name, okay. Ammons family, and they wanted your help. And why did they want your help? What was going on?
Yeah, I kind of got involved in all this by accident. I cover for the Catholic priest chaplain who works in the two Methodist hospitals in our area, one in Gary, one in Merrillville, next door. And his days off are on Friday and Saturday. And so I usually get called in for emergencies.
Right.
And so on the Friday, April 20th, 2012, I was doing what I normally do on Friday morning is my Bible study class. And I got the call from the Methodist Hospital in Gary, from the chaplain who had asked me to come over to do an exorcism. I said, what's that? And he mentioned that this 9-year-old boy was seen by several professional staff people walking up the wall backwards and flipping over his grandmother and went out of the room. And they got the security to looking at the security, then called the police, they called the chaplain.
You're not going over that again. You said that he was walking up a wall backward?
Backwards, yeah. So the way it happened, it was the Child Protective Services were noticing that the children, the 3 children, were missing school a lot, and sometimes when they were at school, they would have things like bloody noses, bloody gums, and different things. And so there was a lot of suspicion that something wasn't right at home. And so they kind of got involved and asked, and it was the mother and grandmother were kind of watching over the children. And so they took them to their doctor to have them examine the children and to see what's wrong.
Family doctor, right?
The family doctor. And so in that doctor's office, it first of all started with what would happen is this demon would jump from one child to the other. And so affect one child and then do crazy things and then jump to the next one and continue probably do about similar type of things.
And so, walking up a wall backwards, that's movie stuff. I mean, do you have other people who saw this happen, witnesses?
Yeah, there's a couple of professional witnesses. One was the child protective agent, and the other one was a psychological nurse, and I think a psychiatric doctor also saw the same thing. So they were, but that was at the hospital in the emergency room, which they took the children to after the doctor's office. Because in the doctor's office, one boy was picked up and thrown into the wall, and before that, they were kind of growling and saying everyone must die, you know, growling noise, and eyes were rolling.
Right, hold on, I'm getting this other sounds for a second. It's a 9-year-old boy we're talking about right now. How many children totally?
There's 3 children. I mean, the 2 boys are, they were right at the time of their birthdays. So it was like, one was like 7 turning to 8. The other one was 9 turning to 10. And then one was the girl, who was the oldest, was 11 turning to 12. So right around that time.
7, 9, and 11, okay. And you're saying that this demon jumped between all of these children back and forth?
Yeah, he would kind of jump from one to the other when it was active. And it also, we originally found it stemmed from the mother, but no one kind of knew it at that time. But and so when one boy got thrown against the wall, he would kind of fall asleep, and they couldn't wake him up.
Are you up into the air and up against the wall like that?
Yeah, they saw him like being picked up, thrown to the wall, and knocked down. And then he kind of fell, you know, then he would be like unconscious. And then the second boy was also kind of acting strange. Now he was kind of saying things, you know, everyone must die, and growling and such, and then he kind of like fell asleep. You know, went unconscious, but they couldn't wake them up, either of the boys. And so, and also the doctor, when he was seeing all this, he said, "I have no idea what all this is. This is beyond my I called the ambulance." So they got 2 ambulances to take the 2 boys to the emergency room at the hospital. And
7-year-old and a 9-year-old.
And so they went for, and it didn't seem to, I think the girl was there, but she didn't seem to be affected at that time. It seemed like they brought, the first thing happened to one boy, the next thing happened to the other boy, and then that's when they called the emergency, the ambulance.
Well, sure, yeah, I can imagine, only imagine the family doctor in his office seeing all this going on. It would be hands up, hands off, take them away.
Yeah. I think the girl went with the mother and grandmother, you know, and they followed the ambulance. The child protective servant agent also went over there And when they got to the emergency room, the youngest boy was going berserk. And so it took like 5 guys to hold him down and try to restrain him and all that. And I think they ended up finally sedating him, you know, and they kept him overnight for observation.
Sure.
And so it would be the next morning, the family would come back, the grandmother, mother, and also the girl would also come back. And in the morning, again, the one boy was kind of always talking about this boy, his friend. Now he would see this boy in the closet at their home that would talk to him about what it's like to die, what it's like to be killed. And so, and then all of a sudden he'll start growling, and then again, you know, he'd go uncontrollable, and then it'd take again like 5 guys to try to hold him down, and then they'll try to strap him into the bed, and you know, into the gurney and all that, and you know, and sedate him. Then it jumped, and then it kind of jumped to the other boy in the other observation room.
The 9-year-old?
So the 7-year-old was with the mother, and then it jumped into the other boy in the other room. This is the 9-year-old, and he was with his grandmother. And now he started acting strange. Now this is, so you had staff in these 2 rooms, okay? So, and all of a sudden when the 9-year-old started acting strange, he would start growling. He would start like hitting his grandmother with headbutting her in her stomach, and says it's now time to die, you know. And then she would try to coax him back, calling his name, and she was holding on to his hands. And as she was trying to coax him back, calling his name, she was backing him up against the wall. And as he came up to the wall, he started to, like, there's 2 ways that it's described. That he walked up the wall, and they kind of like speeded up the wall, glided up the wall, this kind of lifted up the wall. So that there's kind of a couple different descriptions of that. And someday he walked on the ceiling, but he kind of flipped over his grandmother. So it was more, he flipped over his grandmother, sat in the chair, and then looked at everyone who was kind of in that room, and gave this like Grinch-like grin, you know, to them, and his eyes were white, you know. So, and they ran, and everyone who was in that room ran out, and
I would have done it. Definitely what I would have done. This is really scary stuff. And you're saying there's plenty of witnesses to all of this.
Yeah.
I've got somebody who said yes. It was on Fox News. It's been all over the place. So this is that case. My goodness. Continue, Father. I don't know what to say.
So when I heard that story, I said, okay, there is something there, but I explained to them, I can't do anything now. I have to get permission from the bishop to do this, and I need to do an investigation. But I am willing to meet with everyone, and so I feel free to give them my contact information, and I'll meet with them as soon as possible. And so what ended up happening is the 3 children were taken away from the parents, or away from the mother and grandmother. So 2 of them were, the 2 older ones were put into with the Carmelite sisters in the area that take care of foster children. But the 7-year-old who, it took like 5 guys to hold down, and who was talking about, what it's like to die and such, and seeing the boy in the closet at his home and such, he was taken to a children's psychiatric lockdown unit in another hospital, psychiatric hospital in another part of our area here.
So at this point, even after all of this and all of these witnesses, you're still not involved in the sense of doing an exorcism. I mean, you would think that when any medical person saw any of what you just described, they would, you know, that's not any of the books I read when I was giving a nurse or a doctor. No way.
Yeah.
So I guess it's when were you then involved?
So I then contacted the parent, the mother and grandmother contacted me. They mentioned their children were taken away, and I said, okay, I could meet with you at the home, at your home on Sunday evening after my last mass. I have a 5 o'clock mass. I got at 6, so I could get there about 6:30. So I went to their home at 6:30 and was there for about 4 hours to do an investigation. And the first 2 hours were pretty much them telling the whole story. And it all kind of started when they moved into the house. And the reason she moved into the house was that she was trying to get away from her ex-boyfriend, whom she found out was a married man, when her husband, when his wife called her. I guess she discovered her phone number on his phone. She says, "What are you doing with my husband?" And she says, "Oh, I didn't know he's married. Don't worry, this relationship is over." And I kind of explained a lot of things, but she did say something that was kind of strange. And she said, "You will regret ever messing with my husband." And she said, "Well, don't worry, this is over, But he wouldn't let it go, and so he kept on kind of stalking her almost. And so she felt the best way was to move away and not let him know where they're going. So her brother's landlord said that there was a house available, very cheap. And so, and they went to see it, and so they decided to move in there. And, but I guess the boyfriend eventually found out where she moved to. That probably he followed her from work or something like that, and eventually found where she went and was living at, and then started to show up again. But when they moved into the house, it seemed to be things, first of all, that they saw all kinds of horse slides. This was about November, so it's kind of late in the season for that. But so especially on the porch, and they were usually being dead, a lot of dead horse flies, and so they would sleep a lot. And the next day they would find a whole mess of more, and they kept on sleeping up the horse slides. Then one time she saw someone walking back and forth, pacing in their living room. I think this was the grandmother, and she thought someone broke into their house. So when she jumped out of bed and turned on the light, no one was there. But when they looked on the ground or on the floor, there was muddy footprints, and they seemed to come out from the basement area. And then later on, they would hear footsteps coming up the basement. And so the way they kind of dealt with that was to put a lock on the basement, the door from the kitchen to the basement. And then all of a sudden, they would hear footprint steps coming up the steps and pounding on the door. And when they would go and open it, they would see no one. And then other times they would hear dogs barking out there, and then they would open up that door and not see anything.
Well, there's such a way with regard to somebody coming out the steps to the locked door from the basement and pounding on the door, and then nobody being there. No offense, but how does anybody stay in a house with that kind of action going on? I just, you see it in movies and you're screaming, "Get the heck out of that house!" And of course they never do. And I guess they had a good deal on this house, and they didn't have a lot of money, so no choice.
Yeah, they were kind of trapped. actually the thing that keeps people from moving out, and they sign a lease and things, and so they would be liable to pay the whole thing, and so they really didn't have anywhere else to go, and so it was kind of livable in the early part. It seemed to escalate through the winter time. To, as I mentioned, the kids were starting to wake up with blood on their pillows and bloody noses, bloody gums, bloody lips, and things like that. But they couldn't be, there's no, the blood would just kind of appear out of nowhere and, then kind of go away.
Was it at that point, when you viewed your mom and grandma, at that point, were they noticing that this was moving from child to child?
Yeah, they didn't see it like be jumping, but it would affect one child one day, then another one another day, and another one another day. And so it was never was it two at the same time. So they didn't kind of see that later. They'd see something happening to the one child, but it would affect all three. And it wouldn't be till they kind of saw later that, never was two things happening to two of them at the same time.
Okay, you had a pretty good, long, substantial interview with mom and grandma. I guess mom was Latoya Emmons, is that correct?
Yes, Latoya, yes.
Latoya, okay. What did you come away with from that interview? What did you make of her?
Yeah, actually, because I was always trying to figure out, when you're doing this, you're trying to figure out what's the source of this, what brought this in.
Right.
And now we're trying to do this without the kids there, because they're there. So,
of course, yes.
And she didn't know quite, so I asked her, what do you think, did they get involved in, do they play a game, Ouija board, video game, trying to, and they pretty much, we couldn't come up with anything like that. Latoya then was mentioning that she also started to have kidney ailments and went to the doctor 3 times, like in January, with 3 different kidney ailments. And then one time, the only time the grandmother seemed to be affected was one time she was washing clothes in the basement, and all of a sudden something choked her, and she had to get out of the basement. But that was the only time she was ever attacked. But she did mention one time she saw all kinds of sand in the basement strewn over the floor, and so she had to sweep it up, and this was like 2 buckets worth of sand that she had to sweep up from the basement and throw it outside. And then everything seemed to escalate with the last time the boyfriend came over to the house. Now, they would never she didn't want anything to do with the boyfriend, would always tell her, go back to your wife, and we're this is over with and such. And he would keep on showing up, and and they were trying to keep to tell me to go. But the last time he came to the house, he wanted to give the boys $5 each, but he didn't give anything to the girl. And I kind of found that strange, and I asked, why was that? I think Latoya was at work when that happened, and Rosa, the grandmother, was calling her and says he's here and to get rid of him, and he says he wants to get the boys something. Why do you want to give them $5 each? And so, okay, that's okay. And but I asked, why did he give something to the boys and nothing to the girl? And Rosa said that he said that the boys needed this incentive to be good, but the girl didn't. But it just struck me there's something bizarre and all that. And so 3 days later is when kind of everything escalated in the house. And it was a family gathering. Their whole family was at the house. And all of a sudden, the girl gets, they're all sitting in the living room and such, and the girl gets pulled off the couch, and she's landed on the floor. And everyone looks at her and says, "What are you doing?" Then someone pulled me off the couch. And then she started, "Oh, my stomach's hurting," and she was feeling sick. And then they would kind of take her to a room where they were kind of trying to take care of her, and she was feeling nauseous. They would see her stomach kind of bulging, and such, and her legs kind of bulging and all that. And then Rosa went to the kitchen to get a washcloth so she could put on her head. And all of a sudden, behind her, in their living room, they had a freezer, and there was a room in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, one of the boys got thrown into the freezer. And she turned around, and everyone heard this big boom, and said, "What happened to you?" He said, "Someone threw me into the freezer." And then he started getting sick.
Wait a minute, this is a freezer that is closed, right?
This is like a refrigerator freezer. So it is, it's in the living room because they didn't have room in their kitchen for it.
So it opened and he went by.
It's a closed freezer. He got thrown like at the doctor's office. He got thrown up against it, and everyone just heard the boom and turned around and saw him. What they thought he ran into. He said, "No, someone threw me into the freezer." And he said, "There's no one else around here." So then he started getting sick. And so they then took him into the bedroom, and he did the same things were happening to him. He was feeling nauseous, his stomach was, bumps were appearing, and then legs with bumps or bulges and things were appearing. And then all of a sudden, the third boy was in the bathroom, and he got thrown out of the bathroom and went flying. And then everyone turns around and says, "Well, what happened to you?" He said, "Someone threw me out of the bathroom." And then all of a sudden he got sick, the same way. And with that, then everyone's leaving, I said, "We're getting out of here, this is bizarre." And so they kind of heard some of the stories before of what was happening. This was the first time the family actually witnessed what's going on. And so all the family leaves except for my cousin. And she asked her parents that she could stay overnight with the girl, and they said that was okay. And so everyone left, and so they're kind of getting ready for bed. Everything seemed to settle down, and so and they turn off the lights in the bedroom and such. And Rosa and Latoya were about ready to get into bed and such, and they heard this scream, and they come running into the bedroom and open the door and turn on the light, and they see their daughter fall onto the bed. And the cousin said that she screamed because the girl was 2 feet off the bed, levitated. And the girl didn't know. She woke up, after she fell in the bed, and she didn't know anything, what happened. And so they now kind of saw, well, we better do something. And before they were Baptist, and their church wouldn't help them out with the other things earlier. But Rosa's mother, who was kind of a shut-in in an apartment, had a neighbor who belonged to this deliverance church. They do deliverance services. And so Rosa tried to call her mother and to have them come over to see if they could do anything for this. But it took all kinds of different things were happening, interfering with their phone calls. So she would call them. One would call the other, and one would hear them, but wouldn't hear the other. And then the other one would call back, and you would hear the one, but not the other.
Electronic interference.
So like electronic interference. Then all of a sudden, one well, they would call again, and there was this, staticky, but it sounded like a voice in the static, growling and things. And then in one of the calls back, they said that there was a whole series of zeros on their phone at the number. But eventually they finally got enough that they would send, she would talk to her neighbor, and the neighbor would have the church send people over that Tuesday. And so.
Other homes there, it's a financial breakpoint, I guess, or not natural. How do you put this story at all? So you're having a story of possession, and you're going to hear a story of exorcism. This was a nationwide, worldwide story. I'm Mark Bell. This is Midnight in the Desert. I've never heard anything like this as a priest. I was when it was to me, and so I was back to it. Father, you mentioned that they contacted the church they were familiar with, right?
They tried first with them, but they didn't deal with anything like that. So they ended up contacting the church of Rosa's mother, LaToya's grandmother, and they came over on that Tuesday. And so there was like a team from the church, which included someone who's kind of sensitive to spirits. And she went in and she was drawn immediately into the basement. And when she went down into the basement, she came running out and saying, I mean, your house is full of demons, and what do you want us to do? And she said, I can't stay here. And so they suggested various things for her to try to do. And so, like, take oil and put crosses on all the entries, and the doorways, and on the windows, to kind of use bleach or ammonia or something to wash down the walls in the basement, to set up like an altar with and get some stages and have that go, burn down there and sprinkle salt all through the basement. So they did kind of all these different things. And then they would also have invite them to bring the children to the church. And I think Wednesday, they had a special service on Wednesday and then later on Sunday. And so when they went next day to the Wednesday services, the children were kind of giving them all kinds of difficulties of going there. And so it would seem like things were all right in the house. Once they got outside, one kid would go right there, they'd be running all over the place, want to get into the car, and once they would get, one in the car, then they had to kind of, the other one running all over the place, and so they finally got all three into the car, and then one would start like banging their head on the window, another one would bang their head, maybe on the headrest, and just do all kinds of, and then we go to the other one who kind of roll their head around and such, so they're kind of intense.
Demons also don't like to the church.
Yeah, so there were all kinds of trouble. And then when they finally got into the church, it seemed like one would have to go to the bathroom, and then that one would come back, and the other one would go to the bathroom, and then come back, and the other one would go to the bathroom, and they were just kind of just being very, like Kirby's cats type of thing, and all over, they were just, So it was very difficult. So they were trying to, and I think eventually the kids would just kind of fall asleep one by one, and then they would kind of wake them up, and I think they tried. So it was very disruptive. So they weren't really able to do much. So they invited them to come back on Sunday. But I think the same thing happened, but it was even more violent. And now Rosa, before Rosa and Latoya were kind of helping each other, but Rosa said, I'm not going to miss church, so you have to deal with it. So Latoya could never get them into the car and such. So they ended up never, so she so okay, it's too late to get to church, and then the kids calmed down and they went back inside, and Rosa came back and so they decided, well, we're not going to be able to get them to church, and so shortly after that, they would end up leaving the house because they were all kind of sitting around the living room watching TV, and this Febreze bottle levitated off the coffee table and went back and forth in the living room, and they got thrown into Latoya's room, and they heard this huge explosion. And when they looked into the room, they saw that it knocked out her lamp and broke her lamp. But right next to it was a closet. And that's when all five of them saw this huge black monster-like thing with red eyes, like kind of red eyes. And they said, well, just grab some clothes and we're getting out of here. And so they went to a hotel. And
well, that's so understandable. I mean, at this point, they wouldn't really be thinking of possession of their children or anybody. They would be thinking, we live in a haunted house.
So that was the last time they went to the house until so they went to a hotel. They could only afford one night, and then they finally went to relatives to, I think, her brother, Latoya's brother's place. But that was getting very, 5 people moving around. It was pretty cramped. But it was still kind of affecting the kids, and they were missing school and things, and that's when the Child Protective Services would get involved, and then that's when I got involved after that.
How did you get involved? I mean, after all this went on, who was the one to contact you?
That was that the Methodist chaplain at the hospital.
Really?
When the boy walked up backwards. So.
I see. So, at some point, I'm not Catholic. I'm sort of a lapsed Catholic, but I believe that there are permissions required to actually perform an exorcism, right?
Yeah. So I was going to do my investigation. So when I went to the house that Sunday night, they told me the whole story. Okay. And then, so that took about 2 hours to do all that, to get up to that point. But what struck me strange was the boyfriend. And so now I was going to say, you tell me more about this boyfriend, because I think this is the source of it. And that's when the phenomena started to happen in the house. So the first thing was a series of interruptions, not to get me to talk, about the boyfriend. The first thing was the light in the bathroom started flickering and buzzing. And I said, oh, that's strange. So I went and walked over there to take a look at it. And the moment I walked in the bathroom, it stopped. And so I went and sat down again and got my pen and everything. And okay, tell me about the boyfriend. And again, immediately the light in the bathroom started flickering and buzzing. So the second time I went, and the moment I got to the entrance of the bathroom, it stopped. And so I walked back and I mentioned to them, I guess I'm scared of me. And immediately it started buzzing and flickering. And so I went in, this time it wouldn't let me look at it. It was buzzing and flickering. And then I went and got my crucifix, which I brought with me. And then I went to put it even on top of those lights. And it still continued, supposed to be defiant. So it showed me it wasn't scared. It did show, okay, this is not a normal electric problem. This is responding. And so I wrote all that down, and I said, okay, we'll do all that. Let's get back to the boyfriend. And then Rosa started pointing to the kitchen, and the rod. They have Venetian blinds on all the windows, and so the rod that you twist to open up those blinds was swaying back and forth. And so, and so I was kind of looking this, and so I went to take a closer look at it to see what could be causing it. What's interesting was that there were the three cords that used to open the blinds, vertically. It had like three tags at the end of it. And all of a sudden the furnace kicks on, and there was a vent underneath it. And then all of those things are fluttering, greatly. And so, but they weren't fluttered. And then the furnace kicks off, and then they go back to being calm. But still, there was no change in the movement of the stick rod moving back and forth. And then I saw from one Venetian blind to the next, and it was through the living room. They were kind of almost like swaying in time with each other. It seemed like they were coordinated. And then the next one, I went to the bedroom of Rosa, and hers was also swaying. And then I went into Latoya's bedroom to see if that was also happening to her blinds. I didn't even bother looking at that. Right down the middle of her blinds, something was dripping. And so I said, what was this? I don't remember seeing this before. Because when I first came to the house, I blessed it, with holy water. So I went to every room and such. So I don't remember seeing, this liquid dripping down the line. And she said that when the church asked her to put oil on all their, on the windows, and we made a huge sign of the cross on both blinds. Now, there was only one vertical thing, but the horizontal portion of that cross wasn't showing. And so I felt it, and it was oily, so. And she said at times, even though that was done like 6 weeks before, she said it dried. She put it on for one time, and then that was the only time. But at times, it would dry up. But at other times, it was kind of liquefying. So
that would have been dried up all since.
All the time, yeah. So it was. So I felt it was, liquefying. Certainly, So I made a note of all that, and then I said, okay, let's get back to the boyfriend. And then Rosa points down to around here, around where Latoya was sitting. And all of a sudden, it looked like wet footprints were all around her. And I don't remember seeing that.
This is right out of the horror movie. It really is.
And so I went to see if there were, if they were just paint, and then they were wet. So I felt it was wet, I could smear it. And then I was looking where it came from, because I go, where did these? I don't remember seeing these before. So I was in the kitchen, I was in the bathroom, but they were just around her. So I was wondering if I made them, if I stepped in a puddle or something, and was tracking this to the house, and having the, but I don't even remember walking around Latoya that way. I was always going back to my chair. But it was just around her. It wasn't out the door, it wasn't out just these went, and they disappeared. I don't remember seeing them before, so I then made a note of that, and then all of a sudden she said she's shivering, she's real cold, and so she went in her bedroom to get a blanket, and she put it around her, and said, okay, let's talk about the book. And then all of a sudden she throws off the blanket, she's burning up, and then all of a sudden she said, oh, I have a headache. And then at that point I said, you mind if I put my crucifix on your forehead? And she said, okay. And so I put it on her forehead, and she began convulsing, and I took it off immediately, and she stopped convulsing. And I said, oh, I think you're possessed. You have an aversion to holy objects. And she kind of sheepishly.
When you say convulse,
yeah. But it's like she went in like a seizure. She's just shaking.
okay.
And then she would stop when I took it off. And then I asked Rosa if I could do the same to her. And she gave me permission. I could put it on her, Rosa, and there was no problem. And she said, so she was kind of the one least affected by all this. But I said, well, I think, and at that point I looked at my watch and I saw it was 10:30. And I said, okay. I think I have enough here, but I have to get to the bottom of the boyfriend, the key to my boyfriend. So we can probably do that over the phone. And so we, and they went. We closed up the house, and they went back to with her brother and such, and
I think I'd want to do that on the phone too.
And so the next day, Rosa calls me and says, "Looks like very sick," but she wanted to mention something that happened that night because they were sleeping in the same room, and so Rosa was awakened in the middle of the night, and she saw that her feet were uncovered by the blankets, and so she tried to kind of kick, the bedding back over her feet. And as she was about ready to fall asleep, she all of a sudden noticed that the bedding was coming off of Latoya's feet, and that also woke up Latoya. And so I was kind of saying, there seems to be something with feet here. So, does that make any sense to you? And so Latoya called me the next day, and she says, that reminded me of something. The first time I met my boyfriend was that I was missing, and I never thought of this until then, that I was missing. I got a brand new pair of Air Jordans for women, and all of a sudden they were missing. I couldn't find them anywhere. And she was asking her kids, did anyone take her Air Jordans, and they all denied it. And she asked her mother, what would I do with Air Jordans? So and she couldn't find it anywhere. So she was kind of surprised. And then she wanted to make a picture of the family and enlarge it. So she went through her stack of pictures and was looking for that picture she wanted to enlarge. And she also noticed other pictures missing of individuals in the family as well. And then she went again to all the family members and asked them, who took these pictures. Now she was getting angry. She said, people are stealing things, they're lying and everything. This is when her boyfriend just moved in. And then the first night he was there, he said something strange to her. He asked her for her underwear. He says, "When was that?" Because I don't want to remember this evening, And he says, "Well, you're sick, you're crazy. You're not going to have that." So then I asked her, did he take that? Was that missing? She said, "Well, I have so many pairs. I don't know if he took it. I didn't give it to him, but he may have taken have known.
Right.
But it was just a suggestion of it. So I said, oh, okay. So it looks like, yeah, he did some sort of, especially when you left him. You know, he was doing some sort of curse on you, and perhaps on the kids as well. And so we kind of saw the boyfriend as being
Bad guy.
the one who brought you
Initiator. Yeah.
But it also seemed there was something else in the house because later on, I think that Wednesday too.
Father, again, I'm sorry, we're at a break. So, hold that thought, and then you can describe the ultimate exorcism, right?
Sure.
What a case. I want to go on this is Midnight in the Desert. I was there to help us all find the U.S. and Canada and study finances. It's all together. MITV 55. That's MITV 55. Hi, everybody. Father Michael Monchino was my guest, and what a story. All kinds of activity. Children walking up walls, children throwing things, blood, coming unexpectedly from the children, things moving in the house, the concept, the idea that for a while it was a haunted house, the efforts to deal with that, and then apparently the realization that this was an outside influence, mainly the boyfriend. And Father, I started to have all of this documentation from medical professionals, what you had witnessed yourself, the family's testimony. So at some point, who do you go to try to get authorization to do an exorcism?
Yeah, to my bishop.
Your bishop. Was that a hard sell?
Yeah, because he never gave authorization before. So there was no exorcist in the diocese to go to. And so none of us had any training. And so he asked me to contact nearby ones in the Archdiocese of Chicago and the Archdiocese of Indianapolis.
Sure.
And to how to deal with that. And so they kind of gave me a quick lesson. Mainly I needed rituals, and at that time there was no ritual because there was some little bit of concern. They recently revised the rite, and many of the exorcists were complaining about the new rite being not as effective. And so the Pope, Benedict, at that time gave permission to do the old rite, and the church will look at the revised rite and maybe go back to the old one. So
Questions for you, Father. I mean, you've been a priest for a very long time, but you're a novice, certainly had exorcisms. Can you go into this with trepidation yourself?
Yeah, because I didn't have, but there was kind of nowhere else to go. Because you're kind of out on the duty, you know.
Right.
And that's your, but you know, I couldn't hand it off to anyone.
So you moved to the old, you had permission, and then you moved to the old rite, the old way of doing it.
Actually, I tried the new ones, and so they said, you know, there is no ritual right now. You have to get it off the internet, and because no one's printing anything until they settle, we're going to do this. So I would try to do the new rite in English for the
during the time, I saw that you went into a room with the children by yourself, or how did you do this?
No, actually, I was just going to take care of Latoya first.
Okay.
And as it turned out, once I took care of Latoya, it also cleared from the children as well.
Awesome. So, supervising to Latoya to the children. During this exorcism,
But no, actually, I never did a boyfriend.
no, I understand, but I'm tracing.
Okay.
You did the detective work, so from the boyfriend to Latoya, and then on to the children. That's the way it was working. Once you got out of Latoya, did you meet anything during this exorcism? Can you describe it in any way, or are you prohibited from doing that?
Some things are prohibited, but the first exorcism, first of all, what the exorcist from Indy and Chicago recommended is that I do a minor exorcism first, which is basically the rite without the bishop's permission. And if that works, great. If not, then you have to get the bishop's permission. So I always good to try it once. And so I did that. And mainly the sign for Latoya was, she would convulse, and I put the crucifix on her. So when we got to that part of the rite, on doing that, she would convulse. And what you're trying to do is to aggravate it so that it would leave, or weaken it so that it would dissipate. But one thing you don't want it to do is to be consistent, because it's not bothering you that much, and if you're actually hurting the person. And that's what was kind of happening during the minor rite of exorcism with the crucifix on her head. I would keep it there maybe for 30 seconds or so, and there was no change. She was continual convulsion, then I would take it off, and then she would stop. I did that 3 times, and it was the same. So it really was not effective.
You're going to have to excuse me, but I've only seen movies, and in movies they use holy water.
Yeah. Now, holy water didn't seem to bother her. Okay, so it was a religious object. So but there's all kinds of things. So that was basically the only thing that was bothering her, So we would go through the whole rite. Now you only go through the rite once. You do the minor exorcism. So that was the only reaction. And so I mentioned that to the bishop, and so he did give me permission. And so we set up for the first. Now that one was done in the house. And so we're going to do the major exorcism in the church, my church. And so we had everyone there, and we went through the whole rite one time. And when I got to the point of putting the crucifix on her forehead, she was fine. No reaction. And so it was like long.
So you were not harmed in any way during any of this?
No, it was kind of surprising. And now she could, so we thought that was simple. I think everyone else that was there had one that, that was easy. So they're expecting a lot. And then, so she could wear, so gave her a crucifix, she could put it on before she could, she could stand anything religious on her. And one of my assistants gave her what's known as a Benedictine rosary, which is Benedictine metal, like a rosary. And so it's a big, huge rosary here. And so she took that, and she got in her car and drove away. And so we were kind of walking across the parking lot, thinking, wow, that was easy. And then all of a sudden we see something shiny on the ground, on the parking lot, the asphalt. And there was a couple pieces of the rosary, that Benedictine rosary. Then we saw another piece of it, and another piece. So it's like a shred. like 5, 6 different pieces, and so we picked them all up, made sure we had the whole thing, and the person that was going to, that gave it to her, started put it back together. And so we said, I don't think this is over. And so Latoya called the next day and she wanted to know where that big brochure was. She put it in her purse and drove away. And then when she got home, she looked in her purse and she couldn't find it. She looked all over her car and she didn't know. And I said, yeah, it ended up all over the parking lot, where over the parking lot where you left. And it was hard to pieces. And that we're putting it back together. And so I asked her, okay, this is not over, and since nothing really happened, we're going to have a little bit of a problem if we do this again. It's going to be kind of ineffective. We need to get the name of that demon, and and she remembered, this may be helpful. She said that when her church wouldn't help her, she decided to go online to find out how to get rid of demons. She didn't have a computer, so she went to her friend's computer. And so she went up and looked up a website, and it gave a whole list of demons. And she looked at one that described exactly what was happening to her children. And when she went to look at the name, the computer went off. And so she had to turn it back on and then get back on the website, on the internet, back onto the website, find the web page. And again, she went down and looked for the description. And when she went to look at the name again, the second time it went out. Now this time her friend says, you're not putting your demons on my computer, you're trying to go home. And then that friend had my headache for 2 weeks and wouldn't speak to her at all, and it had nothing to do with her. I said, oh, okay. So maybe what we can do is, give me the name of the website. What I could do is print it off the list, and then you point out the name and mess it up.
There you go.
And so we set up for the following Friday to do the next exercise number 2. And so I didn't want to have the list around too long, but Friday was very busy for me, so I would do the exercise for the afternoon, but I was busy all the way to that. And Thursday's my day off. And so I usually on my day off, that day was to go for a bike ride. And so so about an hour before I would go on my bike ride, I was trying to, print out that list. I was doing everything possible, but not let me print it out. And I done all kinds of games and everything. And then finally, about an hour later, it printed out, and it was time for my bike ride. And so, and this is probably the most I ever experienced, this particular demon. So the bike ride starts out as a beautiful day, and something was happening that I never seen happen before. I was going through my neighborhood, and I was then kind of on the other side of the street, but someone, across the street there would be so exuberant and saying, hi, how's it going? Isn't it a beautiful day? And go down a couple more houses, and someone else, whatever they were out there doing, they would have the same kind of reaction, and then I went, still, I think a third place, a neighbor was, and I don't even know these people, and, they just saying, oh, isn't it, what a great day for you to go on a bike ride, really strange, exuberance and such, and so, and then when I finally got onto the bike path, it seemed like everyone I was passing was, acknowledging me, saying hi or, thumbs up or saluting, or, how they would usually kind of, say hi. Usually you make it maybe habits of people to do that, half the people might, do that, but like everyone was passing. And so it's kind of feeling good, about all that. And then I get to the end of the path, and I can empty out into the sleepy little street. But this car comes, racing around the corner, slams on the brakes right in front of me. And I pulled out right in front of me, and I go, oh, you gotta be careful here, that name. And then the whole tenor started to change when you get onto this other path. And now everyone is, they do look at me. They're staring at me, like, with a puzzled look, like they're trying to figure out what's riding this bike, I remember one time there was a family of four, two bikes, and it's just like there were four sets of eyes are staring at you as you run by and such, and all this, and now usually people wouldn't look, so they just drive by, but anyone who looked at me, they just had this stare and, with a puzzled look, and I was wondering what I really see, so it was really freaking me out, and no one said, so it either ignored me or scared me.
But it does all change when this car is rich and it's really with you.
Yeah. And so I get to the end of the path and then turn around and then go through the gate. And all of a sudden I'm thrown to the side of the path. I got down. And I go, what was that?
Right off the bike?
Yeah, I was thrown right off the bike, and then I see my bicycle seat, and it's like 45 degrees off. That's all it was, the seat. But then I went to turn it, I couldn't turn it, that's pretty solid. And in fact, I had to, go to the gate and pound on it to get it so I could ride it. So it was super tight. So it wasn't that, but something had the force to move that bicycle seat 45 degrees off and knock me down. And now, and I know one thing was, you can't be intimidated by these things that get you to stop doing it and, doing what you're doing. Because just kind of thinking maybe I should,
And at this point, you had the name of this youth making the warning that you were going to use in the exorcism, right?
Yeah. And
you're lucky you weren't killed.
And but I said, well, okay. I mean, I'm sure it would have wanted me to, spill out onto the pavement and be springed up and everything. So I was protected. I did, it was close call, but I was all right. But then I go about a mile, and there's a series of S curves, and there's this guy. He's he's like all dressed up like my function. He's just focused, looking at the ground, telling as fast as he could through these series of curves. So he's right in my lane, coming straight toward me, and I'm looking where he's going. And and I was thinking to myself, do I get out of his way? But I didn't want to, get into a dance with him. And so I was about ready to jump off the bike, and he looks up and gets out of the way. I thought, man, that was a collision. I don't buy it. No. And then I go another mile, and we come to, there's these two mothers towing their babies in these little trailers. And so they go through the gate and line up on the street there, and then the yellow comes through, bringing that whole area out. And it's the only place where, there's a ditch on either side, so I don't go to that one. I couldn't get in between them. I go to the other side, there's maybe about a foot or so to get around that facility with his car. And so then I kind of short keyed and such, and I just got phone, I had right, about 20 to 8 that's that shit. And then a car happened. And then I go around. And then I hear them say, I'm sorry. And then there's another bike coming across the street, but I can't stop right in the middle of the street, so that one of them, out the way so he could get and but I was thinking, that didn't happen. And so I go about another mile or two, and there's this mother with her little boy, maybe about 3 years old, pulling a plastic wagon behind them. They're in the other lane. And so I'm about ready to pass them. And all of a sudden, the boy decides to dart out in front of me. But luckily, the mother just as quickly grabs him and to not go because if she didn't do that, and he just would dart, and I would go in front of him, but I would have to go behind the police wagon and then flying it open outside the flying.
So, finding all of this sort of, I think you need to realize this is way not normal.
And I know I can't stop it because it didn't know I was stopped at this point. It has the upper hand. It knows what gives it a stop. And so I have to keep plugging it on. And so, and then we come to this bike tunnel under a very busy street, and it's kind of a narrow bike tunnel. And there's it was the last day of school, and so there was either a set of kindergarten kids, there's some kids, or there's also a nursery school kitty corner on the other side. But I was going down into this bike tunnel, and it was a bright sunny day, and so my eyes are adjusting to hear into the wall. And all of a sudden I see 15 kids. Luckily, they don't go to the one wall. And I could, get into the other lane and go past them all. And then I'm also hoping that another bike comes zooming down the other side. And then nobody there wasn't.
So you were in the street for those kids?
Yeah, so and luckily the kids they all went, some went one way, some went the other way, some so it would have been a disaster. I don't think
Avoid them.
Well, yeah, so it was just something. And also, if I was coming down the other side, I mean, I don't know, it was really good. I shoes. So it was, and I got, beyond that, I was like, but that takes why would you? But luckily, the kids did their teacher and where to go and everything, they don't go with that. And I go, and luckily that was the last thing, because I don't remember anything. I mean, even seeing another person after that. So, but it was,
That was nice. That's incredible story, because when you got the need of this demon and you still got your life in your hands. So there's one more exorcism coming, I take it, and
this one I used the name, so before it, again, it was like, nothing happened. You have to, the crucifix, nothing happened. And then I asked for the name, and nothing was said. What's your name, such and such? And then you began to waltz. And then once I had that, then all I got to do that name over and over. And they got, also bigger and bigger, and then eventually they and so that took care of that one.
Have you been overseas?
Yeah, so we kind of knew, okay, we took care of she never spoke, so we kind of knew, the kids went through these tiny type of things, and so there was a speaking demon with the kids, the levitating one, the controlling one. So we knew that one was still kind of there. And so, so she had no other name. We did have another name. She kind of pointed it out.
I know you're confusing me a little. You exorcise the demon in her, right? In mom. But even that done, you're saying the children still experience.
Yeah, so the children were still experiencing, these things in there where they were at in the foster care and such. We knew and she didn't manifest those. And so we decided to go to the Latin exorcism and the old rite. Let's just try that. And so when we did that one,
this was on the child. This was, excuse me, on the child or children?
No, they were still locked up. They were still, away from her.
Yes.
So we were going to see if we wanted to get, them all out of her, so that, and then see if, then work on the children once we had access to them. And so the next plan was to do it in Latin, the old rite.
Okay, again, you're talking about Latoya?
With the Zoya, yeah.
So when the one demon out, you did that by name, the name you had retrieved, right? And so that demon
was out. That one was out, yeah.
But that was the only one.
So there seemed to be, so she felt there was sex element in her, but we were kind of trying to identify them by personality, again, like what the kids did. So one would seem to make them do rhymes, one would throw them around, one would kind of, now we're not sure if the throwing around is with the levitating. So those didn't manifest yet. So we thought we had to at least deal with those. And so we would do the one in Latin. Now the interesting thing with the Latin one was I was the only one who knew Latin. And in fact, there was someone who would do the responses, but I had to train her how to genetically do those responses. So she didn't know what she was saying. She was, and so what was interesting is as long as you were praising God, it didn't bother this one. But when you started condemning it, then she would convulse again. And so, and immediately when he went to praising God again, it would stop.
Did you have a name that you were after this time, or no?
No, I was just doing the Latin right. Give me a name. Okay. It was reacting. So, and then it was going back and forth, and that happened 3 times. And so I decided just to do the condemnation part of the right and to attack the demon because it just can't stand it. And so it got more and more violent or convulsions, and then like before, then it finally dissipated, and then she finally fell asleep. And then when that was happening, I saw that she was trying to speak something, say something. Her mouth was moving, and nothing was coming out. And she also mentioned she felt like she lift up. She felt something was trying to lift her up. I said, no, we didn't see her lift, but she's not, it's in a church, so it's hard to get the energy that they need to do that. And also, she's a bigger woman, and it's a little different with a child. And so we weren't sure if those left or not, and so.
All right, I'll tell you what, we're right up against the break. We've got one more segment to go, Father. So take it easy. I'm sure this is not easy to talk about. Every time I think I'm hearing the end of the story, it's like a horror movie. There's more. It just keeps coming. But maybe that is the way it is. I want to save your life. Scary, scary stuff. I'm Rick Bell. This is Bye. These calls are unseen for your listening pleasure. Call 952-225-5225. Father Michael Marshmallow is my guest. And you've heard a description of some pretty terrifying stuff. Getting to him, it was, I think, all seen by any number of medical witnesses, how it progressed through one third time and finally to this Catholic priest and what he did. So Father, is this where it ends? Is this the end of the story? I thought that the story was ending any number of times, and then something awful happened again.
And so after the third one, we just kind of set up for everyone present, when we can meet again, if need be. And so at that time it was around 4th of July. And so there was so everyone had plans, different things. So we're kind of working out if she could get back. The third was a possibility with that Friday again. And so, and we kind of gave that in one schedule. So they could do, the third or that Friday. And I think the fourth was on a Thursday. So, so we were going to wait for her to let us know which day she preferred if need be. And so she never called us back. And so there was like no symptoms. And so we never really heard from her. Next time we heard from her was in October. She would give a call that she's having a final hearing for her children, and she took care of that. And if I could, I'd give her a rosary. And I said, oh, sure. Okay. And I was kind of expecting to, see her after her hearing and talk about how everything was going. But for some reason, she didn't even show up for the rosary, or I never heard anything until, after the story broke, and I found out that she didn't get her children back. They had a big party in November, celebrating, that, and I think that it finds ever since. And it seemed like it stopped, affecting the children for final exorcism. So,
I understand. You have no coach, you didn't have you have no website, but there are plans apparently to make a movie of this story. Is that right?
Yes, a documentary is in its final stages of completion. And that's with Zach Biggins doing that. Because I keep it too far. There's so much attention. It's really hard to kind of keep it, if you want to keep it to like a feature length documentary movie, so 2 to 2.5 hours. But he's finding it very difficult to keep it out of that. So that's in the plans. And also, there was plans for a movie, but that was Relativity was going to be the company doing it. It was kind of opening up, for other companies to kind of get back into that
that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's right up there. I mean, it unfolds slowly, but in the totality of the story, it is absolutely terrifying. One question, the ghost boyfriend, what became of him, or did he just like disappear?
That did try to interview him, and wanted to give him equal time and such, if he wanted to dispute anything or whatever. And he wasn't interested, and I did say most likely that he would probably possessed and would probably need an exorcism himself, and maybe even his wife, and if they wanted that, I would be willing to help them out that way. And in fact, even proposed that to him. He thought about it for a while, and then decided, against that, so he didn't come up kicking and screaming that, he's going to sue us back, or anything like that. So he seemed to, consider what we were going to propose, and in the end, decided against it.
Is there anything else around the Ian that we didn't include in the interview? It was certainly a very detailed interview.
Mm-hmm.
Was that right?
But it's also probably the other aspect, because it also affects the house. The house, it is kind of a perfect storm. As I mentioned, the policeman discovered that there was the basement was poured concrete, but underneath the stairs, it was broken, and it was sand. And so we were thinking, when I went around the house with that, I didn't realize that was underneath the stairs. And so we do need to see what something's buried in there. So we need to figure what that is. And there is mention, because the Yamans would also be seen, kind of, there was the guy coming up and down the stairs with the footprint. There was also the boy, the youngest boy, was always talking to this other boy in the closet that only he would see. And so we first of all got a dog, and the dog didn't react to anything. So we then started to dig. There seems to be two levels, about 2 feet deep and 2.5 feet deep. So the 2 feet deep would have meant the second thing that was buried. And it was coming up with things kind of relating to an older woman. First of all, the first thing we found was a fingernail. And we weren't sure if it was a wood fingernail. We were thinking of an applique, face. But we weren't kind of positive on that yet. And then the next thing we found was it looked like a pair of old woman's panties or slipped from other comment. It was kind of old, it was very plain as far as company, because it's very standard, but it wasn't a fancy thing. But it was something that would think would be around the War II or Depression era. And then we found also other things like this red, looked like a top of a tea kettle. And we were looking for the container, but we didn't find anything there. So there was 3 objects that seemed to be to an older woman. Then we went about 2.5 feet deep, and then we found a pair of like boys' socks. And what was interesting, we didn't realize until later, but when we saw it, it looked like the ankle portions of the sock And the foot portion we thought was cut off. Later on, we would discover that actually the foot portion of the sock was tucked in underneath the ankle portion. And it was a very ankle, it was again like a concrete sock, and it would be around, 30s or 40s, plane.
At this point, I will go somewhere up there is body.
Yeah, so they were, that's why the police were doing this. And the next thing we found was this weight, and it weighed about this heavy metal 10 pounds or so, all corroded in their own time. That little hook-like thing at the top. I was trying to figure out what it was, and maybe the thing is that weight was meant for other spots, but the house didn't seem like that kind of type. It wasn't that big. And then they were kind of saying, Gary Dixon said, these old houses I used to, when the cord to open the drapes, they would put this grate on it and put the cord down. And then the next thing we found was this long route, and now there's people just like a ball. We were kind of thinking that built in 1926 and also just a couple. And we were trying to find out if they ever had a boy. And we haven't been able to find out yet. So we're maybe thinking that that's the boy that was very positive, that maybe he accidentally killed himself by maybe swirling around that weight and it caught him in the head or went off the wall and knocked him out or, left on his neck or something like that and killed him. So that might have been the thing that killed him. It's shocked, those types of abuse type of things. So, and the other one could have been either the woman's mother, because the kids also came off the bus one time and coming home from school, they saw this old lady in their backyard, and they came and they were walking back to her and asking her, what are you doing in her backyard? And when she turned around, she had red eyes. And so they ran into the house and got the mother and grandmother, and they keep running out, and she wasn't there. And that's the second time they saw this woman in the backyard, and they came running into the house to try to get their mother to go out there, and again, was missing. So it seems to be two human, human, most like figures tied in the house as well. So it's kind of a perfect storm.
Does that house now stand alone? Is there somebody living in it now, or what's it becoming?
Ben Vegas bought the house. And it is interesting, he kind of avoided it because he is very active. And in fact, he was doing some filming on it this past winter. And one of the cameramen, when it ended up seeing this like roadside go-ahead thing, and he agreed with the people that he gave up on the project.
Have you, others not
Yeah, so I think there's three others beside that one.
Each one, you went through, you can go back to the picture.
Each one, all four were approved by the bid. One was tied to the house, so that one I have permission for, anything with that house, is I have permission for. But the other two were two separate people, two separate cases.
I've never heard, I've never heard anything like this one. It's just amazing. I don't know what to say about it, and there's very little I can say about it. It is what it is, and what it is sounds to me like clearly possession. And clearly, do you think it's completely non-pleasure, or are you still concerned?
We're so concerned because, in fact, after the cameraman he ordered on the house, anyone, they were messing with it. And now we recently did some more filming, so they unrecorded it. When they walked inside, they saw no one had been in there since the winter time, and some of the stuff on the table. But then there was a handprint with all the doors.
It just never ends, does it?
And also, there was this hole in the ceiling, and so they were thinking some animal, like a raccoon or something, must have dug a hole. It knocked all of those, debris and such to the ground, and all types of water and mold and everything really got in there. And we were looking for the animal, and we would have done that, and they couldn't find anything. And they didn't see the accident. Didn't climb up the wall again. So it either just, for some reason, whatever, dug a hole in the roof so that the water can get all in. So the house is kind of ruined now.
As I said way back in the show, I would imagine something of this magnitude of preservation of your faith. Yes.
Yes.
I want to thank you for being on the program. You have been incredible. You're just right on. Just absolutely incredible. Thank you.
You're welcome, Chairman.
Thank you.